That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that Ben Lee, did you say?
Ben Lee. It's from an album called Awake is a New Sleep. It's called Catch My Disease.
And Ben Lee, he worked with Ben Folds for a while, didn't he?
He did indeed.
And another guy called Ben.
I think it was, they were known as the Three Bens.
The Three Bens?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. We have Charlie Higson with us. Charlie Higson, you know probably best as Swiss Tony. You know him from The Far Show. You know him for his work with Harry Enfield and on Friday Night Live many years ago. Here's what you might not know. Charlie is a well-respected novelist.
Oh, yes.
Right. Oh, yeah. Kingdom of the Ants was his first novel.
King of the Ants.
Yes, that one. Then there was one called Have a Whack. And
Full Whack, yeah.
Yes, Full Whack. And there was another two.
Yes.
Yeah, I read one of them. I can't remember which one it was. It was one where the bloke he's used to be really handy, and then he walks away from it and he watches
Full
Quiet.
Whack.
Yeah,
Full Whack,
the Fully
was,
Whack.
yeah.
And he watches Quiet Scotsy quite a lot. And you wait, you know he's going to go off again.
Yes.
Oh, and you're waiting, you know he's going to go off again. Is he going to go off the next show? Oh, he didn't go off. And then you wait, and then Higson strings it out. Mark says, is he going to go? Oh, he didn't go off again. He's going to go off soon.
Finally he goes off.
Well, don't spoil the ending.
Ah.
That's not what you should do, Charlie. Now they're not going to buy it. Anyway, Charlie is now, and this is an idea which time I've long been saying they should do this. The James Bond people approached Higson. Well, you tell the story, Charlie.
Yes, I was approached. I mentioned this last time I was on your
Yeah,
show. I was talking about Swiss Tony, and I said I'd been approached by Ian Fleming Publications, and I was writing a James Bond book for children.
That's right.
And your words to me were...
I said that's a great idea.
You know, you said shame on them and shame on you.
What?
Yes.
You're mixing me up with Steve Wright again, aren't you?
You, along with some other people, were horrified by the idea of doing a James Bond book.
Well, it seemed
for
like a
children.
bad idea. It seemed like a terrible idea. But now I realise, you see, it's not really for children. It's for young people.
What young people usually are children.
Well, I was thinking of 5-6-year-olds. I thought it was going to be like Mr. Men.
No.
I thought they were going to have a big blobby cartoon drawing of Blofeld
Little
with a
Miss
cat and
Maypenny.
going, my name is Blofeld. Blofeld. Do you like a cat? Stroke my cat, said Blofeld. And Bond going...
You know, you could be on to something there.
Yeah. No, don't start. But no, this is more... It's kind of like for the sort of age group that I was when I first read the H. Rider Haggard books, those kind of stirring boys' adventures that we
It's a difficult age to do books for boys, particularly because they're too old for the younger books,
The
Horace
kiddie
Henry and the
stuff, yeah.
stuff you're talking about, and they're not quite necessarily ready to read fully adult books.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of stuff out there. I mean, particularly not sort of straight down the line thrillers.
Yeah.
So
There is
I
one
hope
guy.
it's
There
great.
is one guy. I can't remember his name. There's a guy. I think he's a Jewish writer. He writes thrillers for kids.
Anthony Horowitz.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
very successful books about a teenage spy called Alex Rider.
Have you read those?
Yeah, well, I didn't read them while I was writing this book because I didn't want to be influenced in any way. But my kids read them, so I have since listened to the story tapes on long cards.
And they're good, are they?
They're brilliant. They're brilliant books. But he's writing about a kind of modern day teenage spy.
Like a Cody Banks kind of figure.
Yeah, kind of. And his books are very much like the modern James Bond films.
Yeah.
My book is much more about the Ian Fleming books. It's
That's-
about James Bond in the early 30s.
That's why your
as-
books are
as a
better. That's why your
13-year-old.
books are the best books. There's no doubt
Well, they're
about it.
different.
Yeah,
They're different.
no, they're the best books. Just, be a bit confident.
I can't.
Charlie, come on. They're great books. You know what I love about it is the fact that it's set in the past. I was thinking about this last night because I was listening in my car to the theme music from the Ipcress File.
Yeah.
Okay? And, when you're driving your car, you've got the Ipcress File on, you like to think you're Harry Palmer. And I was going, Oi, you, get out of my way.
That was uncanny.
Yeah. I'm driving, yeah? I was really in the moment. And then I thought, you know what, it was not the same, though. You can't have spies wandering around London or globally today because it's the internet and they wear silly training shoes and men wear shorts that end halfway between their knee and their ankle, and it's not as stylish, it's not as fun, and people don't have umbrellas with poison in, it's all too high-tech, and, people... It's not the same, is it? What you love about it is it was gritty, there was rationing, there was the early Bond books. There was that feeling that, the possibilities weren't there, and that's why it was so great.
Yeah, they were really interested in the book because they were written in the 50s, and it's very much that kind of just coming out of rationing, and you knew that the average English male was living this very grey existence.
Never seen a banana, much less an avocado.
And there was James Bond travelling the world in nice clothes, eating nice food in restaurants, and jet flights
and all
things
the rest.
like that, and all that, and it was really glamorous.
So setting it back in the 30s, I think, is an even more exciting period. Obviously, you have to chronologically go back to that, but it's a great.
Yeah.
That's a great time setting.
Well, they were, and there was a lot of stuff going on in the early 30s, on a political level and social level and international, with the rise of Nazis and communism and all that. So it's a really good, fun time to write about.
I tell you what I like about the idea here, and what I like about what you're doing with it is they tried it with Sherlock Holmes. So it was that movie, I think it was a Spielberg movie, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
They made that Spielberg movie, Young Sherlock Holmes, and
Sherlock Holmes.
it didn't work. I really didn't enjoy it. I was looking forward to it, and I was hoping it would be more like a Tintin book, which I used to love, the Tintin adventures. Well, they were great, not the early racist ones, but the later ones.
They were great.
They were ripping yarns, and that's what you can do with this. I would have thought. You've got that great backdrop.
You can strip away all that kind of corniness that's grown up about James Bond recently. All the terrible high tech stuff. I mean, once they've done an invisible car in the films, it's kind of like enough of that, please.
I must admit, I did like the invisible car. I just didn't like the bit when he went wakeboarding with a car fender, and it was like a PlayStation 2 beginning.
Yeah, it was awful. But to go back to the 30s, you can get rid of all that and just write about James Bond as a tough kid who's out there having good, strong adventures, like those old 30s books like John Buchan and all that.
Now, how interesting is he as a character, though? Because ultimately, and this is why I'm much more of a Harry Palmer man. I don't know if you know that about me, but the great thing about Palmer was he wanted the Butler system. He was an upstart.
Yeah.
Whereas Bond is essentially a kind of company man.
Well, in a way, Harry Palmer was a kind of deliberate attempt to do the opposite of
the
James
anti-Bond.
Because Bond was still, starting in the 50s, was very much upholding the British Empire and all that, which was dying about his ears. But well, how do you address that? I mean, particularly, James Bond went to Eton, so the background of these books is that they are at Eton. But, he was an outsider. Because the good thing about James Bond is, he's his own man. He goes off by himself and has these adventures. So
he's decided what path he's going to walk. It happens to coincide more often than not with what the British government would like.
Well, later on. But he's not a spy in these books. He's just a school.
Of course, but in the 30s, it's kind of easier and clearer to make that judgment because I think most of us have come to agree that maybe Nazism was a bad thing.
Yeah.
So if you've got the rise of that going on there, then that's pretty easy to say, well, yeah, okay, great. Nowadays, it's far more
except
complex.
at that time, in the early 30s, a lot of people thought Nazis was great,
Not young
and
Bond.
Communism as well. Communism in places like Eton, there was a lot of people were getting into communism.
Let's get started on communism, because I still haven't made my mind up. Well, we never had proper communism, Charlie, and you know that as well as I do.
No, and we never will.
There you go. I'll get my copy of Iscar out in a minute.
Yes.
The Spark, Lenin, 1902. In all good bookstores now. Did you enjoy writing it? Is it a fun thing to do? Because I would have thought anyway, and I maybe there were certain constraints placed upon anyone taking on a property like James Bond.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was. I was commissioned and officially sanctioned by Ian Fleming Publications, who own the character. And I had to please them, and they gave me certain guidelines that I had to stick within. But I quite like working within constraints. I mean, I like on TV. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do the Swiss Tony sitcom, was because I like the idea that you can't do whatever you like in a sitcom.
Yeah.
You've got this small box, and you've got to work within that.
You've got characters that you have to weave together.
Yeah, and you've only got unlimited number of sets and that. And so I quite like. It can be quite creative when you've got.
So what were the parameters that were set by the Bond people?
Well, it had to not contradict anything in Ian Fleming's novels. It had to roughly fit in the time scale of that. Although he did keep changing his dates to keep James Bond a bit younger.
A bit younger, you have to do that in fiction. Yeah.
And they wanted them to all to be set at Eton.
Yeah, and that was the one that I would have thought would have been the kind of that would have hobbled you more than the others.
Well, I used Eton as a sort of springboard. In the same way in the books, you've got the sort of MI6, and the adventures start there, but then he goes off.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's just in the background.
I'm using Eton in the same way as this kind of establishment.
That's what I would have done. That's what I would have done if they asked me.
And then off he goes out into the world for his adventures.
They didn't ask me.
No, weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
the novels you've written.
Yeah, well, I haven't written one yet, but they didn't ask me. No. And I'm a Bond fan.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get to do the young Harry Palmer books. Let's have some music. Now, Charlie, of course, was in a band for many years. The band was called the Higsons, and they were surprisingly popular, weren't they? They were quite a popular band.
Why did you say surprisingly?
Well, because you're not really rock and roll model.
No, that's why I gave up.
Yeah, no, but it was good fun. You had a lot of fun.
We were a good live band. Yeah, we never quite worked out how to record it.
But didn't you have one? You had one kind of hit or semi-hit, didn't you?
Well, we did a cover version of Music to Watch Girls By, the Andy Williams song, which got to number 70 in the charts.
That's not bad, number 70.
But you see, with the sales we had these days, that would have been about number 4 or 5.
He'd been number 1 for a year. It would have been like Bryan Adams today. What do you listen to now, though? I imagine you're someone who still likes music. Probably just your kids' stuff, though, isn't it, that comes into the house?
They're not hugely into music, actually. They're computer games. They're the new generation. They don't care about pop music.
Now, I'm glad you raised that. Here's something that bothers me, is I think people interact with music in a very different way today.
Yeah.
When we were youngsters, when you bought an album, Charlie...
Yeah.
And you had an album. It was a proper album, wasn't it?
First of all, you'd study it very carefully on the bus on the way home. You'd read the whole of the sleeve. You'd read as much into that.
There was no portable way of playing music when we were kids. You had to wait to go home.
So all you had till you get home was the sleeve.
Oh, wasn't it beautiful? Now, when you got home, What did you do?
You'd play it over and over and over again.
Would you do anything else while you're playing it over and over again?
No, you'd sit and listen to it, particularly if you're a boy. Girls are always different.
You wouldn't... Yeah, girls would do their nails and stuff.
Dance and stuff.
Talk
to each other.
Dog's hair and stuff like that.
Boys would sit and study guitar solos,
and
drum
look
sounds.
at the pictures and try and imagine they were in the pictures. Now, nowadays, kids don't do that. Nowadays, we've got the news.
Yeah.
Never mind the news. Now, this is more important. This is news in its own way.
Yeah.
This is news.
It's too easily available. It's everywhere. Music's everywhere, and it ceased to have any value.
We'll play some more music after the news. 88 to 91 FM. This is Radio 2 from the BBC. Outcast, Hey Ya, that's a great song. What would the people who edit those little montages of sport have done last year if they hadn't had that track to work to? I think that was used over every sort of like sequence of goals going in, wasn't it? What a great track. Charlie Higson is with us, ladies and gentlemen. He is responsible for many fine things in his life, but he's now written a book called Silverfin. It's out right now. It's basically it's the first chance you get to meet Bond in Bond's career.
That's right.
It will now go down as... I mean, that's quite a weight of responsibility on your shoulders, I would have thought.
Yeah, which is sort of slowly dawning on me. You know, when it was offered to me, I thought, yeah, great, that'd be really good fun, and I've been wanting to write something that my kids could read. Yeah. So, you know, I just sat at home in my little office writing away, just enjoying myself. But as it went on, I was suddenly started to think, hang about, I'm writing a James Bond book here. This is rather a big thing to take on. You know, there's a huge global phenomenon.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you start looking at the websites, it gets a bit scary.
You must never do that. You must never
I
look
just
at the
think
website.
I'll just look at all of them and I'll kind of, you know, I'll come to terms with it.
Yeah, but there's a lot to come to terms with that, though, isn't there?
There is, yes.
Are you
you know, they're very entertaining, and it's great that there's these people out there who are so fanatical.
Huge
about
fans. Are you tempted to bring in any of the villains? I mean, Blofeld being the big one. Are you going to bring Blofeld as a boy?
No.
He could go to Harrow, maybe.
No, that I didn't want it to get that kind of in-jokey, kind of silly level. There are quite a lot of sort of hidden references there to old things. In fact, in Silverfin, he doesn't meet, but he sees the father of one of the villains from the later books, but it's very subtle. Unless you're a complete fanatic, you wouldn't pick up on it.
Presumably you've read all the existing Bond books.
Yeah.
Including the ones... There were a few that weren't written by him, weren't
Well, I
they?
didn't... And then there were a lot, and, you know, they've been pretty successful over the years, but I steered clear of them.
Right.
I just stuck completely to the Ian Fleming books. There was also a thing called the biography of James Bond by a guy called John Pearson, which is supposed to be really good, which is... It's a novel, but it kind of fills in the
all
background.
the gaps.
But I thought, no, I can't...
You wanted
I
to
can't
start
read that.
from scratch yourself?
Yeah, I wanted a clean slate and just go on what Ian Fleming wrote in his books.
I tell you what, I mean, it's obviously packaged. The book is packaged for the teen market, so it's got a nice shiny cover.
It's got every possible technique you can put on the cover of a book.
It's like very it's like that very
foil.
expensive wrapping paper you see sometimes. It's about more expensive than the gift it's going to be. You know, you don't want to fold it and put tape on it. I'm disappointed with it.
Why?
The cover. I wanted, because the Bond books, the old books, they had those great covers, and they were Pan, weren't they?
Yeah, they were fantastic.
Now, why can't Pan publish this?
Well, it's a tricky one, because that's what I thought that
Where's Pan today?
With fantastic illustrations like that.
Yeah, great pictures of guns and stuff and ladies' legs.
But the publishers were very sensitive, because they thought if the book in any way looked old-fashioned, kids would be put off. They don't want to read something and think, oh, that's old-fashioned, I want to read that.
That's fair enough, I suppose.
But it's possible, you know, if the books become established and popular, that they can experiment with other covers.
Silverfin is a very good title for the book as well. You know, that's a crucial thing in James Bond books and films.
Well, that was the hardest thing,
title.
was the title. Yeah. We got pages and pages of rejected titles.
Because it's a bit like Goldfinger.
Well, it's about how close can you get to Goldfinger? Yeah, I mean, the websites have had a field day on that one. But actually...
Platinum Thumb, is that the next one?
Once you use it a few times, you sort of forget
Silverfin,
that.
you do.
It's not a bad title.
It's a very good title. Are they going to make it into a movie, do you think?
There's been a huge amount of interest, obviously, in the film rights, but we want to establish the books first and not be led by the films.
Who could play Bond as a young man?
Well, at the moment,
Hugh Grant.
Well, there was a rumour that went round at one point that Orlando Bloom was going to do it.
Bloom? Orlando Bloom?
As a 13-year-old, which...
He's got the chest of a 13-year-old, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, he is a little
He's a tiny little fellow, isn't he, really? He's just nothing of it.
But he's lovely.
He's a little child, really, isn't he? So how many of these books do you have to write? How many are you doing? How many have you agreed to do?
The plan is to do 5.
Right.
I was originally approached just to do 1. They were going to get a different author to do each one, but the other authors seem to have run off.
Who wouldn't run off? They're faced with Higson. They can't deal with the competition. And you presumably are in it for the long haul. You'd like to do more. Yeah,
no, I mean, it's what a great job to be offered.
What will the next one be called?
I don't know. The working title for me was Double M, but I've been told that that's not snappy enough for kids. So
how about Lightning Ball?
Lightning ball.
Bit like Thunderball, but lightning ball.
Oh, that's
Here's one. Dr. Maybe. How about Dr. Maybe?
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah, you
From Poland with love.
Yeah, what do you think? How about Bingo Hall Royale? Because he can't go in a casino, he's a boy, but he could go in a bingo hall to see if his mum needs him to pop out and get some Dr. Whites.
You're just being silly now. Yeah.
I'm not being silly, I'm trying to help you, Higson. Do we have this queued up?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just introduce this because, Charlie, I believe, what was the first Bond movie you went to see?
The first Bond movie I remember, in fact, the first movie I remember ever seeing in the cinema was Thunderball.
The first Bond movie I ever saw was Thunderball. I still think it's one of the best Bond movies.
It's great. The only problem with it is you don't know who's who in the underwater battles.
Doesn't matter, because the underwater battles are brilliant. And they've got that. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, dum, dum, da-dum, dum, dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We're going to play the better music from this. Here we go. Forget the fact that this was almost butchered by Nick, I believe, during the Celebrity Fame Academy.
Oh, God, did he sing it?
Oh, he tried to. He kind of coughed it. It was a phlegmy guitar-based version. This is the original and the best. This is Sir Tom Jones singing Thunderball. Just give this a chance, OK? Just give it a chance, all right? Don't judge too soon. My name is Bond. James Bond.
What
do you think,
you're
Charlie?
auditioning now,
What do you think? What do you think? Seriously,
it was uncanny.
I can do it. I can do a German
For a
one.
moment, I thought George Lazenby was in the room.
Now you say that, but George Lazenby was a great Bond.
No, he wasn't. It was a great film.
It was
a great film,
but he didn't have any charisma.
He was a little wooden. That's a great film. It's very much of its time, that film. There's a few moments in that you would not get away with now. You know what I'm talking about.
No, explain.
No, I'll tell you later. I think I've met all the Bonds, apart from there was the American actor who played him very early on in either a TV or radio.
Barry Nelson, I think.
Yeah, I haven't met him, but I think I've met all the others, and I've interviewed them at various stages. George Lazenby was a very, very lovely man, kind of filled with a lot of regret, obviously, at the way his career turned out. He told me some great stories. The best one being, and I hope you won't mind me repeating this, was he was very, very attractive to ladies.
Yes.
One of the main reasons he got the job. They did screen tests and he just blew everyone else away. Yeah. And he said he told me, quite honestly, that he was the worst husband in the world. Every time we were married, he was the worst. He could not control himself. He couldn't keep it in his trousers, basically. Right. And ladies were offering themselves to him. And I said, really? That's remarkable. I said, when was the kind of most blatant event, you think, when you let yourself down this way? He said, well, I was fairly recently married and I was in a restaurant with my wife, and as I walked to the toilet, a lady on the way there gave me the eye. So when I came out, I winked at her and she came over and we did it behind a rubber tree plant. So he cheated on his wife
in between
restaurant? Going to the toilet and coming back to a table in the restaurant.
That's fast work.
That's
unbelievable. A big plant.
Yeah, because he was a big bloke.
It was a rubber tree plant. There's lots of fronds.
Whoops, there goes another rubber tree plant.
James Bond behind a frond. And the wife knew, he said. She looked at him and she went, what have you been up to?
As you say, they're not very big rubber tree plants. The whole restaurant probably...
It's not that, I just think he wasn't a very good actor. God, that was a good one. I had a good old clear out. You were up to something else, weren't you? I'll double O you when we get home. How do you rate the other Bonds, though? How do you rate Timothy Dalton? How did you rate Piers? How did you rate Sean Connery, Roger Moore? Do you have a favourite?
You know, what I quite like about them is that they all represent, a different era.
Yeah.
They all, Roger Moore was kind of disco Bond.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like him at the time, but looking back, he's not James Bond, but he's very funny.
He's great, and
he
was really... And in what's the one with Solitaire? Is that Live and Let Die?
The first one.
He's great in that. Yeah. He's fabulous in that.
I mean, people mock him, but he's very funny.
Yeah, it's only towards the end, I think maybe he did one or two too many. That was
he was nearly 60 by the time he did the last
and he
one.
could never run convincingly.
No.
Ever in a Bond movie. They should have got a running double in. Connery,
well, you and I both grew up in the 60s, and so he was James Bond for us.
And
then Timothy Dalton was slightly shackled by being this kind of 80s PC Bond who wasn't allowed to smoke or drink or have
but
sex.
he had a good look about him, I thought.
Well, he was closer to the Ian Fleming idea of James Bond, where he was more of a real character with real genuine emotions.
And Pierce Brosnan?
Pierce Brosnan was kind of 90s Bond, isn't he? Kind of, branding and
post-yuppie, slightly post-yuppie. But he was very good, I thought.
He was, yeah. He had a tendency to pout slightly.
No, I don't think so.
I liked him. I had Connery first, then Brosnan second.
He was good. No, he did a lot. He kind of revived the brand incredibly.
If you could choose, I don't know if you have any ideas in your head, if you could choose someone to play Bond again now, obviously the franchise is continuing, who would it be? Who do you think would be good, who's out there right now? Is there anyone?
There's no one obvious, which I think is why there's so many names get thrown about.
Bandied around, yeah.
Actually, in a funny way, Hugh Grant would be quite good.
I think Hugh Grant would be great, actually.
Yeah.
I'm there with you on that. I really think it'd be very good for him as well.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to be shackled with something he's got to
Well,
sign
he
on
can't
for
get arrested
several
anywhere
years.
else, can he? It's not like he's getting, apart from Richard Curtis, they're not knocking the door down to get to him, are they?
Well, I think you'll find that Bridget Jones last year was the second most watched film after Shrek 2.
Yeah, but they were going to see her and her big bum, weren't they? They weren't going to see him.
He was very good in it.
Listen, how about David Williams from Little Britain as Bond?
Yeah.
But I'm a Bond!
And Matt Lucas as the villain.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
No.
What about that?
Much as I like them.
What about Peter Kay as Bond?
Peter Kay.
What's that mean?
Well, stop saying stupid things.
I'm not, I'm just running them past you, see what you think.
I still think Clive Owen, for me.
You think so?
I mean, when he was in Croupier, I thought he had the
You
right...
found him attractive?
No, I just think he's got the right look about
He looks
him.
great,
He looks like a
but,
Bond.
You know,
he looks like
I
Connery.
won't say anymore.
What about David Bowie as Bond?
Just, no, he'd be a good
David
villain.
Bond, James
Good Bond
Bond.
villain.
You can sing the theme
Mr.
tune.
Blofeld. What about Lady Bond? Time for Lady Bond. What do you think about Jane Bond?
Jane Bond, where they've tried it over the years, haven't they?
Well, you know what? Wasn't it a shame that Halle Berry, who was really good in the movie as Jinx, and they were going to make a Jinx movie, and she didn't
well,
want to do
I
it.
went with that.
And she wanted to make
They all-
Catwoman.
Yeah, well, that was. She blames other people for that, doesn't she? But she complained about her agent saying, "Doesn't he read the script?" And you think, well, you're in it. Did you not read it?
Well, she probably only remembered a page at a time. You know?
Because she turned up to the Raspberry Awards and accepted several awards.
Well, good.
Which, hats off to her. I'd say fantastic.
I think we do have to forgive her though, because she's Halle Berry.
Yes.
There you go.
Get rid of
And she feels a catsuit. Charlie, how lovely to see you again.
And
I
you.
hope Silverfin, I hope Silverfin sells as well as it should. I'm sure kids will really enjoy it. I'm going to read it to Harvey. That's a promise, Harvey, if you're listening. I'm going to start reading it with you and to you this week. I think it'll be great fun.
Good.
If you've got a boy, I would have thought the target age would be boys. I'm sure girls would enjoy it as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned Anthony Horowitz earlier, and I did a radio thing with him the other day, and he said his readership is about 50-50 boys and girls.
Well, that's good. Yeah, he did a talk at my kids' school, and I know that they all turned out for that. Then
You'll enjoy reading it. It's got some good accents. You can do German, American,
that's just good.
German scientist. Everything you need to do your showy off accents.
It's from the nice people at Puffin Books. Silverfin is dangerous. Silverfin is the future. Silverfin must be destroyed. Only James Bond can do it. Has his voice broken yet? Have you established that?
Well, we don't want to go into that.
You know what would be great? Let's have the book when he first starts shaving. Because for the first week, it's the best adventure in the world, isn't it? And then, it's a lifetime of pain. Yeah. Women, pregnancy, nothing. Menstruation, nothing. We got to shave every day. And on that note of reason, we say goodbye to Charlie Higson.
Goodbye. Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Thank you for being here, Charlie.